President Macron of France is here on a state visit. He is the first leader of a European Union country to have a state visit since the country voted Brexit 9 years ago. And boy, are they rolling out the red carpet for him. Not much. Have a look at him here, getting into an open-top carriage to ride through the streets of Windsor with the King. It really was quite something. And then we moved on in Windsor to an inspection of the Guard, and I thought this next clip that you're about to see was really, really interesting, all because it's a matter of protocol. And normally, when someone visits this country, whether it's the King now or the Queen before, it's kind of, they're normally very deferential. They're normally very deferential. But in this case, if this clip comes up in a moment, and I hope it does, we will see them inspecting the Guard. Not there just yet. It will be in a moment. Anyway, what's interesting about this is he then went on to speak right next to the robing room in the Palace of Westminster. And we're going to go on later on tonight to a big state dinner that will take place at which the King, and we're told, is going to talk about the relationship between our country, the importance of defence cooperation, etc. But what is particularly interesting is the King is going to say, talking about modern threats in the world, no fortress can protect us because between our countries, we know no borders. I'm really sorry. I'm not a Republican. I'm not in the habit of criticising the royal family. Perhaps he's been poorly advised. But actually, we are a fortress. We're an island. It gives us massive advantages, as it has done throughout the whole of history. And to say there are no borders, well, I suppose in some ways he's right, because at the moment the dinghies cross the channel and nothing much seems to happen. But I think the King is making a mistake in saying this, because absolutely what his subjects want is for there to be very strong borders between us and France, whilst at the same time we have great cooperation. Now, Macron spoke about migration, he spoke about these threats, he spoke about the problems, and Keir Starmer is pushing very, very hard for a one-in, one-out deal. So one crosses the channel, we'd be allowed to send them back, apparently, and then someone that they allege, or we allege, to be genuinely a refugee would come. I don't think for a moment this deal is going to get signed on Thursday. I think the other European Union countries would object to it. France, under EU rules, could not decide this for herself. And even if they did, would one in, one out actually make any sense? Would it be workable? I don't know. My thought for you back at home is the King right to say there are no borders? Let me know what you think. Tweet #Farage on GB News or email farage@gbnews.com. I'm joined in the studio by Sir Ronald Jayawardena, former Conservative MP and Minister, and Joe Phillips, journalist and former Press Secretary to the late Paddy Ashdown. Joe, it's difficult for the King. Mm-hmm. We all know it's difficult for the King, and he'll be given a whole stack of advice. I just contend that to say there are no borders between our countries is quite a big mistake.
Well, let's see the whole context of what he actually says. That's only the clip that, or the sort of the pre-briefing that we've heard.
Well, that's true, but we have been given quite large chunks of it. Yeah,
but I think, you know, what King Charles has tried to do, and he's much more touchy-feely than his mother was, and he is much more willing, and I think he's always had a small p political interest in, you know, whether it was the environment or whether it's architecture and all the other things that he cares about and has done. And was...
Well, the architecture's not that political, is it?
Well, it can be.
It can be.
It can be.
It doesn't
environmentally, the environment has been very political, and he was, you know,
he actually, I'll praise him because he's kept off that since he became the monarch.
Yes, and he's, you know, and he was written off as a sort of a tree hugger and somebody who talked to his plants and things. I think this is his way of saying, you know, we are friends, we are neighbours, not so much, you know, we're an island and we're going to play Little England.
I don't know. Ranald seems to me to be quite a big mistake he's making, and something with which the vast majority of his supporters would disagree.
Well, I think, as Joe said, it's really important to look at the full context here. And my understanding is he's saying that it's our two countries that face a great deal of challenges in common. And as I think his wording is, as friends and as allies, we face them together. These challenges know no borders. And that is true.
Yeah.
You know, the fact is, across the whole of Europe, there is a big problem with illegal immigration. The EU should be acting tougher. I know the Italian government would love the EU to be acting
one of the reasons
tougher.
I pushed so hard for Brexit.
Sure.
I saw the stupidity of
Sure.
what the EU was doing,
Sure.
allowing millions of people to cross the Mediterranean.
But I didn't think, therefore, there's anything wrong with him saying that there is a big problem that transcends these borders, and it's right that we should be trying to tackle them with the French. I think it's encouraging to see some activity now by the French police to try and stop boats crossing the channel. This is
honestly,
this is progress. But hang on.
Hang on a second. Hang on a second.
There's much further to go.
Don't you think it's a coincidence that a BBC camera just happened to be on a beach a few days before the state visit when we've given them 800 million quid?
No, I'm not into conspiracy theories. Whether that's true or not, I don't know. But the point is...
You were in government. You know all about spin.
Oh, there we go. You got me there. I think the point is that at least some action seems to be being taken now, which is a start. I happen to agree with you on this one in, one out deal. I mean, I think, you know, the idea that fundamentally there'll be the same number of people, but it's like a different group of people, I'm not sure that's going to really have merit, and I'm not sure that you will even agree to it, as you say.
I think it's about people reuniting with their families. That is the general...
Joe,
but I'm sure
given
but absolutely.
given the sheer number of people in Britain already, from Afghanistan, from Iraq, there's almost nobody that wouldn't say, I've got a third cousin in Huddersfield
I
or whatever
think they're
it may
direct
be.
family. I mean, we haven't seen the breakdown. And just to go back to what Ronald was saying about the King, you know, he is talking not just about immigration.
Yes,
he's talking about the other things that we face as neighbours and friends and allies and all the rest of it. I think, you know, interesting...
Well, that may be true, but the focus of this summit is without doubt, because all the other stuff we've done at NATO, etc., over the course of the last few weeks, the overwhelming focus of this is what's happening in the Channel. The Prime Minister knows there is growing anger in the country. The numbers are 50% up on this time last year. I just don't think it's a very clever comment. But look, moving on, it seems to me that on this issue, Starmer is possibly now in even more trouble than the Conservative government was before.
Yes, I think he probably is. And I think, you know, the figures have gone up hugely. Now, we know, you and I have talked about this before, that a lot of that is due to the weather. It is also the fact that they are putting more and more people on the boat. So there are fewer boats, but more people.
There was one came into Dover the other night with 90 on it.
Yeah, well, I mean, and regularly there's sort of 60, 70 people. So there's all of that. The smuggling gangs are getting braver and more bold and brasher, and they're moving down the French coast. And as anybody knows who's been to that area, you know, it's sandy dunes, people hide, they get in, and all of that sort of stuff. But, you know, the point that you've made, I mean, we have given billions to France to not really see very much done.
No. Well, Ranald believes it. You know, he sees one boat being slapped.
Hang on.
And he thinks the French are doing a great job.
I mean, a bit like selective quoting of the King. I think that's selective quoting of me.
Do you know what? I really am not selectively quoting the King. I was really careful.
I've got the quotes.
I was really careful to go through all of this.
From the King. The King's quote is, "These challenges know no borders. No fortress can protect us against them this time."
We're an island.
No, these issues, as we've seen, if the French don't act, the people come here. So we've got to make sure we're working with the French.
It's wide open to misinterpretation. How much trouble do you think the government's in on this issue?
Huge amount of trouble. And yes, you know, our record could have been better. I'm not going to pretend otherwise.
Could it be better?
I'm being honest. I'm saying yes. We should have acted earlier. We should have acted harder. I get that. And I think Kemi gets that as well. She said as much. But the point is that this government said they were going to so-called smash the gangs. And it's not happened, has it? People are now very disappointed.
In fact, the gangs actually have become even more brazen.
Exactly.
I chucked something up on social media last week where one of the gangs just put their mobile phone number. Straight out there. It's on TikTok, it's elsewhere on social media. No, they are failing and failing badly.
You know, the government is cutting the backlog, which you left
But that's
behind.
not the illegal... this is not the people coming across the channel.
But some of those people will be there, people who will have come across the channel, who've been sitting...
But it's being backfilled by more people coming across the channel.
Course,
That's the
but,
problem.
I know, but it's a bit like the prisons, which we may talk about later.
We're going to talk about that later. All I can say on this subject is that I think it's a disaster. I think it should be declared a national emergency on the grounds of security. And isn't it funny that all the fish that are within our 12-mile limit increasingly belong to the French, yet all the illegal migrants belong to us? Something is very wrong.